Hey everybody, welcome back. This video is going to be, I guess you could call it a video response or a video parallel to 23 Penguins 32's posting of paranormal investigations. And I'm going to talk about my own paranormal investigation that my family and I went on when we were in Scotland. And now I know what you all are thinking, how does this relate to Dungeons and Dragons? Well, let me tell you, it has opened my eyes into ways of dealing with or approaching the supernatural entities of role-playing games. Ghosts, wraiths, revenants, any of the undead, demonic, dark forces. You know, usually in role-playing games you just pop them out in there and they're, "Grr, I'm gonna attack you," or "Oh, I'm gonna get you, I'm a ghost." Ooh. You know, that's kind of the classic thing, right? However, that doesn't really scare. And I had some experiences down in my paranormal investigation that we were on that really opened my eyes to how, what is the word I'm looking for? How the environment itself and the fact that you can't always see or know what's going on really affects your mental state, and how it can affect your emotions and what comes from this kind of experience. So we're going to talk about that at the end, so let's get down to the experience. We went to the vault on July 16th, 2011. Yes, I have some notes. I wrote it all down because, let's face it, it was awesome and I didn't want to forget about anything. So July 16th, we were staying in Edinburgh. Anyway, I'm just too excited to talk about the experience, I can't even remember. Anyway, we went down. It was, what time was it? I think it was midnight. Was it midnight? Yes. It was about 11:30 that we showed up. Just a small side alley, middle of the night. Nice little creepy old sign hanging off the building. And we walk in. It's just me and my family, so it's me, my sister, my mom, and my stepdad. And we're all really into this kind of stuff. So we go in, and it's the four of us, and then we pick up one more guy. We meet with our medium, and for privacy's sake, I'm going to avoid using names or anything. But I will put a link, hopefully, somewhere down in here, down below, that has the link to the website that we used to book the tour, if anybody's interested. So we went and met our medium and our guide. So there was two people with three additional people if you count our extra investigator, and then our guide and our medium. And we go down to the vaults. Now the vaults they're not technically underground. What they are is between two streets, the government, I believe it was in the 1800s, I think it might maybe a little earlier, built a bridge across two streets, and it connected for a central highway, or central street I should say, not a highway, a central street. And beneath the strip of road they built a number of vaults, and the vaults were originally going to be used to store wine. However, the road leaks because of the certain kind of material that they used. So everyone moved all the wine out, and then it was used as like a slum district, and the worst kind of people moved in to use it as a free living space. We're talking about robbers, cutthroats, rapists, prostitutes, people who are down on their luck. You get the idea. So these kinds of people all moved in, and the government did absolutely nothing about it. They just let them sit in there. And so a lot of horrible things went on down there. Bodies just turning up down there, people just getting dumped. So it's a really dark place. Eventually, the police, who, mind you, avoided the entire place, went in force and slowly moved everybody out. But there are a number of entities who lived in there to begin with who, let's just say, haven't left yet. For example, there was a Wiccan, or a White Witch, who moved in to the vault and claimed an area as his own. Mind you, all of his original stuff is still there. All of the clothing and everything that was on the walls, his magical books and everything, and old candles still are within the vault, and it's sealed. And he came down one day back, to where he lives, and everything was destroyed, just torn asunder. And he, so the story says, discovered a dark entity had chosen to take up residence in his room, and he, using his abilities, forced it out and then bound it in another vault in a stone circle. And it's one of the major draw points to the vaults, the stone circle. The vaults have been featured on, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the show, Most Haunted Live. On that show they did an actual episode about the vaults and about the circle and about everything that goes on down there. So I'll try to put up a link or something to that video if I can find one as well, just so you can see what they discovered. But there are a lot of unexplained phenomenon that go down in the vaults. For example, the website that is for the organization that we use to show us around the vaults actually has a warning on their website that people have experienced cuts, bruises, burns, destroyed technology, cell phones, etc., pushing, shoving, injuries that can have been sustained from being what they said has been knocked over. And that's the actual warning on the website. So you have to be careful when you're going down to this place. It's not a very nice place. So that being said, there are some still, people who were good people in life that were just forced into a bad situation. So we go down into the vaults, and it's about 12:30 by the time we get all of our equipment set up and are allowed to just free roam the vaults. Now there are about 15 vaults that we're allowed to explore, and they told us just go. We had EMF readers, electromagnetic phenomenon, or force, I think it is. We had EVP, electronic voice phenomenon recorders. We had dowsing rods, which are two curved rods that are about this long, and you hold them in either hand. You keep your arms apart, and you hold on to them, and they have a little a grip that allows the rod to rotate, so it rotates freely. And what you do is you hold very still, and they're originally used to find water. I learned. Our medium told me this because I was using the rods. And they originally used to find water. Something about magnetics. The rods will shift. You hold them very still and make sure there's no movement, and then you slowly turn your body, and they will rotate. The rods themselves will rotate towards where there's water. However, you can also use them to contact the other side. We had a Ouija board. We had a number. What else did we have? Electric thermometers to take readings of the rooms, or vaults rather. So we had all this set up. We all went our separate ways, and mind you, I'm in a nice jacket because it's cold in there. It's damp. It's raining outside, so it's leaking. So it's cold in there. So I have a nice jacket. So I'm all snug and warm inside my jacket. And I take the rods, and I decide to go by myself. I head off into one of the rooms, and I head off into a corner, and I just kind of stand there and play with the rods a little bit, try to figure out how they work and see that they move a lot. So I have my hands about this far apart, and I don't know if you can see, locked my elbows against my body, and I just held them nice and loose in my hands, but made sure that they could still move. But then I made sure I wasn't moving them. And the medium said, you don't have to ask questions out loud. You can ask questions in your head. And so I said, okay. I'm a believer in the beyond and in ghosts and demons, etc. So, but these rods, I'd never really heard of them, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is going to work. Let me ask a question in my head. So I stand in the corner of this vault, and it's what's known as the poltergeist room, and it's a room where there's an entity that has an extreme dislike for those that enter, but it hates women more than it does men. So I went into this room alone, and I hold up the rods, and I think to myself, make sure the rods aren't moving, and I hold my hands very still, and I think the question to myself, is there anyone here in this room that wants me gone? That was the question that I thought to my head, is there anyone in this room that doesn't want me here? And I said, just move these rods if you want me out of this room. At first nothing happened, so I just kind of stayed there really slow and just quiet, and I didn't move. And then all of a sudden these two rods just go from being like this, and they just slowly go like this and cross over. And that's the exact motion. They went nice and slow, and then as they started to get close, they went really fast and just crossed right over. And when they cross over, that means that you're close to an entity of some sort, or an entity has chosen to speak with you. And so at first I thought, that was just me moving it. So I flick the rods back. It's nice and easy to move them. So I flick the rods back forward, and I ask the same question. Is there anyone in this room that wants me gone? Just move the rods and I'll leave. And almost immediately this time, the rods just do the exact same thing. Just really fast this time, just right across. And I knew it wasn't me, because I swear I was holding these things still. I'm not a surgeon or anything, so my hands aren't like perfectly still, but I'm not like shaking the whole time, so I'm nice and still, and the rods just cross right over. And I mentioned that I had the jacket on. The second time as the rods crossed over, I got goosebumps all up my hands and all the way up my arms, just ice cold. And I was just like, it wasn't like one of those cold chills where it emanates from your body and you just go, ooh, that's weird, but instant goosebumps just erupted up my arms this time. And I just got this really weird feeling, and I step out of the room, and of course this is the time where our medium takes us all together and says, let's investigate the poltergeist room, as the first room that she wanted to explore as a group. And so I was thinking to myself, great, this is awesome, I just left. So we go back into this room, this vault, and our medium's a woman, and then my mom and my sister are there, and the rest of us are men. And so she has us stand apart because, like I said, the poltergeist has the extreme hatred towards women. And we stand separate across the room, and we have the thermometer out, and our medium starts asking questions. And mind you, this is only about 30 minutes into our investigation. It's about 12:30 in the morning, roughly, I think, 12:40. And one of our other guys that was with us, who was holding the thermometer as the medium was asking questions, says, I don't mean to interrupt, but the temperature in the room just dropped 0.4 degrees. Excuse me, 0.4 degrees in a single area can be a significant amount, particularly in a room that is sealed off from the outside. Albeit it's leaking and stuff, but it provides a almost constant temperature. So the temperature drops by 0.4, and then 0.8, and then by 2 whole degrees, and it just keeps slowly getting colder in the room. And I don't want to sound like I'm making any of this up. This is all really experienced, but I'm trying to be reasonable about it for everybody else that will be watching this video. I'm standing there with the rods again, but this time, I'm not asking any questions. I'm just trying to see if anything happens. And our medium keeps asking questions, and the temperature's dropping. And then suddenly, like, right here, in my head, I just got, like, this weird feeling, like a headache. A really bad migraine was coming on. It almost felt like something was going like this and pushing onto my head. And it was just pushing and pushing, and the pressure was just building. And it hurt. Like, the headache hurts, but this literally felt like my head was getting pressed together. It hurt so bad. And, at the time I didn't voice anything because I was like, oh, maybe I didn't have enough water today. Maybe I just didn't sleep enough because, I'm up late now, and maybe this is just a random headache that's coming on because of things that I haven't done throughout the day. And after a while of questioning and the temperature dropping, nothing really else happened. So we leave the room, and within 5 minutes we'd head back to the front area of the vault. And we head back to that front area, and within 5 minutes of just being out of there, my headache was gone. That pressure in my head was it was gone. And I asked my stepdad, I said, "Hey, did you feel anything in the room? Are you okay? Does anything happen to you so far?" And he's like, "I had this weird feeling when we were inside that vault. My head just started hurting really bad, like right here." And that's what he said to me. I hadn't told him anything about my headache. And he said it just hurt right here, and it felt like I was getting pressed on right here. And I said, "Really?" That I had that exact same feeling. And I said, "Is it gone now?" And he said, "Yeah, it's gone. I feel better. I don't have a headache anymore." So that was kind of freaky to share an experience of a headache, mind you, with someone, which I thought was a little strange. So I've got crossing rods, I've got pressure on my head, and I'm going to try to keep this a brief video, but there was a lot of stuff that happened that night. That was just one instance. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it again. It was creepy stuff. Walked into a room or a vault that was said to have been, where some of the prostitutes stayed. And as soon as they said that, as I walked in the room, a bunch of people are ahead of me, and I walk in, almost the last person into this vault, and I take a whiff of the air, and like I told you, we're underneath a bridge, and it's musty and dirty and grimy smelling, and it smells like a closet almost that hasn't been opened for a while, or a cellar that hasn't been opened in a long time. That dank musk of earth and stone and grime. You know what I'm talking about? I hope you do. It's that kind of smell. And as we walk into this last vault, that smell is replaced by this pleasant, citrusy, flowery fragrance. And I took a deep breath in of it, and I was like, that's so weird, why does this room smell like fruit or something, like this citrusy flavor? And I kept that to myself as well. And later on in the night, I came back to that room, and it smelled like dirt and grime and must and dirty cellar. And so I was experiencing an olfactory experience to whatever had been in the vault, particularly I guess the prostitutes that had stayed there. And I'm talking about the experience that have only happened to me through the vault. So let's switch for a second, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that happened to my mom. My mom, believe whatever you want to. I'm going to tell you what my mom has told me. She is a believer as well, and has had some experiences in other locations and throughout her life. My mom also has had occurrences where she's had very vivid dreams about people that she doesn't know that turn out to be true. For example, my family were part of the military, so when my stepdad was deployed overseas, and he was in combat for the very first time when the war started, my mom had a dream about halfway through his rotation. We hadn't heard from him in almost 60 days. And she had a dream that she was out in the desert, she was walking, and against a palm tree she saw a man. And he was in a uniform, military uniform, and he was bleeding. And she described him very vividly in the face and said, I don't really want to talk about this because it makes me really sad. She said that the man looked at her and said, "Tell my family that I love them." And that's what he said to her, and then he died in her dream. And, sorry, I'm getting a little choked up, but we got a call a few days later from my stepdad, and he said, "Hey, this guy I know has died in combat." And my mom asked what he looked like, and the guy who my stepdad described was the guy in my mom's dream. and she didn't know the man, but my stepdad did. And it was a very descriptive dream, something that had happened in her dream, and she asked about, where was he found, and he was found leaning against a palm tree with shrapnel in his side. So that's almost exactly how it happened in my mom's dream. So getting back to the vaults, my mom is, out of our family, I would say the most susceptible to energies or entities. Our medium told us in one particular room, if you remember the Wiccan that I was talking about, the White Witch, and how he found an entity and trapped it in a stone circle. Well, this entity can pull parts of its essence out of the circle and run amok down there. So for most of the night, our medium had to tail my mom and keep this dark thing from following her. My mom said she got goosebumps every time she would go into the vault that was with the stone circle. She had extreme feelings of nausea when she was in there. She had a feeling of being scared for no other reason than just that it was in the room. And our medium said it was because the entity was following her. There were, as the medium described it, dark shapes around my mom that were splitting apart, which is, she said, something she'd never seen. It was splitting apart and chasing her in this dark, almost wolf or dog-like form, and just stalking her around the entire vault, and just would not leave her alone. And it followed her for almost the entire night. Mind you, the entire time my mom has an EMF reader, and she can hold it up above her head, given my mom's only 5'3", so she's kind of short. But she holds it up into the air, and the EMF doesn't go off. But the moment she held it below her waist, it would go off like crazy, no matter where she was, anywhere in those vaults. If she held it below her waist, and the medium wasn't next to her, it was going to go off. It was crazy. And that's what followed her, was this dark entity. We heard knocks and banging throughout the night. It was a very creepy experience to know that, there could be something following my mom around. Just that I can't do anything about it. As a son, it's just some dark force is creeping and crawling all around my mom. And she, like I said, she had goosebumps and she had cold chills. It was pretty scary stuff. And, mind you, I've only talked about the extremely creepy parts. There were also some good parts. I had a pleasant conversation with a English gentleman, once again using the dowsing rods. And I asked questions. The left hand meant yes, right hand meant no, yes and no questions, and if he could move them. And over the course of about 45 minutes, I learned a great deal about this entity, and he was just, he described himself as a caretaker, just a guy who's down there to look out for other people. And our medium said his name is William. And turns out William was just that. He was a caretaker, and he looked out for some of the people that were down in the vaults. And he followed me around for a while, answering questions and just keeping an eye out on me. And I know this because, the medium told me it was going on. And I know, people can say, oh, well, that's just what the medium says, you're being followed. However, I could always hold the rods in my hand, make sure they weren't moving, ask a question, which would then be answered. Particularly, I would ask the question, William, are you still with me? And the rod in my left hand would always move a little bit to one side or the other. And it was really interesting to learn about these rods and these entities out, in these vaults. That there are dark, evil things, there are good things. It was a pleasant experience, a scary experience. Thankfully, no one got cut or bruised. However, there have been people who have been cut and bruised and burned by going down into these vaults. I would go down again in a heartbeat to have more experiences. So how does this relate to D&D real quick? Because we're approaching the 25-minute mark and I don't want to suck away all your guys' lives. So what does this do for D&D? The fact that I couldn't see and fully understand everything that was going on, it's kind of frightening in a way. And it provides that mystery about it, you know. By not being able to see what was really going on, by having those props in my hand, it made the experience all the more eerie and I don't want to empowering, but a powerful experience. And if you can find a way to transition those kinds of emotions and that fear into players inside a role-playing game, I think you can get a greater level of immersion, a greater sense of scope, if you will, about the beyond in role-playing games, about demons, about entities. So I've already been thinking about a way where a ghostly encounter where they can't see it. You know, it's not a see invisibility check. It's not anything like that. This is an entity that does not want to manifest in a shadowed form or anything. It's something that you cannot forcefully make come to you, and it's just going to manifest itself in noises. It's going to, you know, hack at you, and you'll get cuts or burns if it doesn't like you, if it wants you out. It cold chills. And in a session sense, I feel that if, you know, I turned out the lights, if I had a candle in front of me, if I, you know, could do something where if it's cold outside, I have a window open just enough that a breeze could possibly roll in, you know, or eerie sounds, you know, from the wind coming through a slightly open window, just anything, you know, that I can provide this sense of what I felt in the vaults. And like I said, I'm going to put up some links, hopefully, in this little description box that comes up down below these videos, and point you guys to this amazing place. It was pretty cheap. I think it was only like £30 a person, so roughly, what I want to say, $50 US, I think, maybe, per person, which isn't all that bad. So 4 of us, my family who did it, was £120. Yeah, 40 times 3, or 30 times 4 is 120. Yeah, so £120. So like 160, 180 bucks for 4 people in US dollars for an awesome experience that I would do again and again every night if I could, just to see other people's experiences. I'd do it again. So this has been a paranormal investigation of the Edinburgh vaults and how you can relate it to D&D. Thanks if there is anybody that stuck out this 28 minutes. Thank you for watching and sticking through it, and hopefully it has helped you in some way bring about that image, evocative feelings of the beyond.